All right, let's keep going with Siddhartha Chapter 8. We've seen that he's feeling what we would call suicidal. Then from a remote part, right here, then from a remote part of his soul, from the past of his tired life, he heard a sound. It was one word, one syllable, which without thinking he spoke indistinctly, the ancient beginning and ending of all Brahmin prayers, the holy Om, Om, the sound, which had the meaning of the perfect one or perfection. At that moment, when the sound of Om reached Siddhartha's ears, his slumbering soul, his soul that is sleeping, suddenly awakened, and he recognized the folly of his action. Siddhartha was deeply horrified. So that was what he had come to, meaning what he had arrived at. We say this often. Is this what I've come to? Means, is this where I have arrived? He was so lost, so confused, so devoid of all reason that he had sought death. This wish, this childish wish, had grown so strong within him, in him to find peace by destroying his body. All the torment of these recent times, all the disillusionment, all the despair had not affected him so much as it did the moment the Om reached his consciousness and he recognized his wretchedness and his crime. What is the crime? The crime, I think, in this would be that he would try to destroy himself. He sees this, and many see this, as a crime against yourself or against God. Now, a lot of my other students, especially, say from Japan and other places, they don't see this as a crime. They see it as logical if your life is so, not that they think suicide is great, but they don't judge a person for committing suicide. I'm kind of, I can see the different areas of this, but it's better to live. So Om he pronounced inwardly, and he was conscious of Brahman, not being a Brahmin, but Brahman, the world soul, of the indestructibleness of life, that even when you die, your life doesn't die. He remembered all that he had forgotten, all that was divine, but it was only for a moment, a flash. Siddhartha sank down at the foot of the coconut tree, overcome by fatigue. When you're very tired, it's like fatigue is something outside, like fatigue is a demon or a monster, and it overcomes you. It means that your body finally gives into fatigue. You're like, oh, you feel so tired. He was overcome by fatigue. Where are we at? Yeah, murmuring Om, like he's falling asleep and murmuring Om, Om, Om. Even as he's falling asleep, this is murmuring. Murmuring Om, he laid his head on the tree roots and sank into a deep sleep. His sleep was deep and dreamless. He had not slept like that for a long time. By the way, in your culture, what does it mean to have a dreamless sleep? Is it good? What does it mean to dream? Is it significant? This would be interesting to know. Maybe send me a message and tell me. Are there any significances to dreaming? I know some people that after someone dies, when they dream of them, that is a good thing. It means that they are kind of reconciled to that death, that the person actually visited them in the dream. There are many different ways that we can see dreams. Okay, so he awakened after many hours. When he awakened after many hours, it seemed to him as if 10 years had passed. He heard the soft rippling of the water. We could also call this murmuring. The soft murmuring of the water, the soft rippling of the water. He did not know where he was, nor what had brought him there. He looked up and was surprised to see the trees and the sky above him. He remembered where he was and how he came to be there. He felt a desire to remain there a long time, so he feels very peaceful now that he woke up. The past now seemed to him as if covered by a veil. He could only partially see it. Extremely remote, very unimportant. He had died to it, right? So he didn't kill himself, but he had experienced a death. He went through, sometimes in Christian ideas, we have this memory or scriptural memory of Jesus when before the day that he was crucified. Crucifixion was a horrible death. And he was waiting that night, and it said he even sweat blood, right? But then the next day he was okay with it. But that night before, he was feeling terrible. He died to his fear that night. In the same way that Siddhartha has died to something behind him. And now it seems very remote and unimportant to him. He only knew that his previous life, at the first moment of his return to consciousness, his previous life seemed to him like a remote incarnation, like an earlier birth of his present self. So again, we're talking about birth and re-death. That's part of this whole thing. And it links it to our own lives. We in our lives experience new births of ourself, right? We thought we were one way, we become another. And then that life before seems totally remote. I remember when I was in high school, I couldn't imagine not skateboarding every day. I was obsessed with skateboarding. I loved it. And now it doesn't mean anything to me, right? I mean, I still have memories, right? That part died. So in a way, he has died, and he has been reincarnated. We all experience this in our life. So he only knew that his previous life, and we're going to skip down to here, was finished. That it was so full of nausea and wretchedness that he wanted to destroy it, but that he had come to himself by a river under a coconut tree with the holy word Om on his lips. Then he had fallen asleep, and on waking he looked at the world like a new man. Softly he said the word Om to himself, over which he had fallen asleep, and it seemed to him as if his whole sleep had been a long, deep pronouncing of Om, thinking of Om, an immersion and penetration into Om, into the nameless, into the divine. We've all experienced something like this, right? What a wonderful sleep it had been. Never had a sleep so refreshed him, we're up here, so renewed him, so rejuvenated him. Perhaps he had really died. Perhaps he had been drowned and was reborn in another form. This isn't literal. He's kind of thinking like it feels like that. No, he recognized himself. He recognized his hands and feet, the place where he lay, and the self in his breast. Siddhartha, self-willed, individualistic. But this Siddhartha was somewhat changed and renewed. Now, I want to point out Siddhartha, self-willed, individualistic. I'm going to propose something here. This is Hesse's Siddhartha. I don't know very many people of my friends from South Asia, even now, even in this modern day, I don't know many that would say that they are individualistic, because they're coming from a culture where you're part of a group. Now, I have one friend that maybe is, and I'm not saying that there isn't individualism in South Asia, but I think overall, Hesse is presenting his perfect German. Hesse is German. If I presented someone, I would present the perfect American. Why? Because that's who I am. I'm from here. I can't suddenly be someone else, you know? So he's presenting someone who is self-willed and individualistic. Okay? But I could be wrong. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, meaning don't take it too seriously. Think about it and ask yourself that question. Is this a South Asian Siddhartha like the Buddha? Or is this Hermann Hesse's own Siddhartha, his own version of the Buddha? But this Siddhartha was somewhat changed, renewed. He had slept wonderfully. He was remarkably awake, happy, and curious. Okay, so we're going to stop here. So Siddhartha didn't kill himself. I think we might be able to finish the chapter the next time. So he's starting a new part of his life. So we've seen Siddhartha go through many incarnations of himself, right? And this fits the idea of the cycle of birth and rebirth, that he's actually experiencing it in his own life. And then the question there is this a German Buddha? Because this is Hesse's Buddha, and he wrote it in the late 1800s, which means Buddhism was known, but it wasn't as known as it is today in the West. But he knows a lot. So that's a question for you. You tell me, you post for me, especially South Asians. Please let me know what you think, okay? Not that you would know everything about the Buddha and everything, but it's interesting for us to have exchanges based on who we are and where we've come from. It's good to share this together. All right, so make sure to like and subscribe. This really helps me out. You'll be doing me a solid if you do that. It will help my videos to get seen. I'm doing this all for free. Though for me, I love it. I love it. So, and I wish the best for you. I hope to hear from you, and I hope to help you out, and I hope this is helping you. All right. So see you later.